fanatic or even addicted. Say my habits are bad, my silly life is conflicted. But if it makes me happy, why should I quit this? The world brings me down, WoW makes me uplifted. Every moment with my guild is a moment I cherish. Call me a nerd, call me a geek, but I'm no longer embarrassed. Say I'm socially screwed, never have kids or a marriage. I don't live my life for money, fame, or chasing your carrot. And while people like to hate, discriminate, and be mean, in my world we work together to defeat the Lich King. Doesn't matter if you're black, white, ugly, or fat. Everyone be kicking booty in the world of Warcraft.
Welcome everybody to episode 26 of the Pseudo Nerd Podcast for July 1st, 2016. I'm your podcast host, Josh Kiser, and joining me today in the world of Azeroth is Josh, I only make night elves with large breasts, Haddix.
I can't control that in WoW, dude. Sorry, bro.
And Kyle, I am a fan of Satan, Hoagland.
What's up, everybody? Not a fan of Satan. Disclaimer.
Your first Warcraft character would have a word with you on that one.
It only lasted for like 6 weeks, if that.
That was because Blizzard made you change it, not because you chose to change it.
Not because you became not a fan of Satan.
It gave me the opportunity to name it, to give it something, be able to bring out my creativity, of course. And by that, Blizzard named my character for me.
Well, I figure they feel like you made such a poor decision originally that they were just going to do it for you.
I mean, wait, what kind of bullshit is that they don't tell you, hey, this name was reported, please change your name. Instead, it was just like, I log on, it's like, your name is now Tox.
Well, the weird part is I feel like they do that now. Like I think
Yes.
I think in Wrath of the Lich King, Andy or someone made like a perverted name on purpose, and he just logged in one day and like had to change it before he logged in.
Well, which one? Ocean of Pubes? Cup of Vag?
Yeah, Bowl of Dicks or something like that. I can't remember what it is.
Well, coming up in today's podcast, we were going to discuss Warcraft, the movie. Not so much the video game, but we will compare how the movie's lore matches up with the movie lore, as well as our thoughts on the movie and sort of debate and discuss what both the critics and users thought.
Yes, we are.
Thanks for the reaffirmation there.
Yeah, no problem.
So nothing sells this podcast more than radio silence. I'll tell you what.
That's what people tune in for.
I mean, we can talk about what's on my desk today. I mean, we already had the joke before, but for some reason there's a premium catnip on my desk for whatever reason.
Dude, tell your wife to keep her bra on while you're recording a podcast.
But I will say, though, just kind of like going into this topic in particular, I don't know. I'm assuming that anybody who's listening to this podcast has probably seen the movie itself. And I would actually venture to guess that they actually did like the movie. I mean, obviously we're going to go more into how we feel about it.
Well, I mean, you figure if
really been divided.
If they like this podcast, then they probably like the movie. But to be fair, that if they like this podcast, they really don't have, a good opinion on anything anyway. So
just like our podcast, it's panned by critics and loved by fans all over the world.
Right.
Absolutely.
So as we kind of get into it, obviously we're all Warcraft fans in certain degrees and varying degrees. Haddix, why don't you start? Tell us your background of your Warcraft fandom, and then briefly your thoughts on the movie as far as you like, didn't like, that kind of thing. Yeah, and then Hougie, we'll pass it over to you as well. So just everyone knows when we start giving our thoughts on the movie, sort of where we're coming from.
The my history, I guess, of playing the game isn't very in depth. You guys all played it. I created a character on Hougie's computer.
To be fair, you're referring to World of Warcraft. I mean,
I'm sorry.
There's plenty of games before then, so let's.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. World of Warcraft was my venture into the World of Warcraft.
Well done.
My venture into Blizzard's game in the Warcraft genre. My beginning was World of Warcraft. I started playing at your guys' apartment. You guys had all already purchased the game. I created a character on Hougie's computer while he was at work and enjoyed it. So you and I installed it on my shitty laptop, and it worked barely on the lowest settings possible when I wasn't in a major city. So I said, "Oh, fuck it."
I mean, that's putting it nicely to say it barely worked.
Yeah, it was very bad.
That was trash.
But, yeah. But I've been playing. That was what I think. I'm pretty sure that was December. That was a Christmas break in 2004, and I have basically been playing the game. Maybe unsubscribed at a month, maybe 2 tops at a time. But basically, I've been playing since then. So 12 years now, and this day and age, it's really casual. Hougie, me, Matt, my cousin, basically get on and just dick around on the night, like on weeknights and sometimes on the weekends, and very casual play. And I think my love for the game is what made me really enjoy the movie. So, and I'll get into why later, but I did enjoy the movie.
All right, Hougie.
So I started playing in 1995 with Warcraft 2: The Tides of Darkness. It was a game that, like, it was probably the first game. I don't remember if the first Warcraft even came out for Macintosh, but I had a Macintosh back in those days.
It may have, yeah.
But I just remember the old Scholastic book, like, catalog we would get, where you can, like, get books and things like that. But also in there were a couple of video games, one of which was Warcraft 2. I went ahead and bought it. I loved it. And I think a couple years later, like maybe 4 years later, they came out with the BattleNet edition, which I know you and Matt got, and I got, and we ended up playing the crap out of that as well. I think you guys had played Warcraft 2 before the BattleNet, but I know that we all bought the BattleNet edition as well, so we can actually go on the BattleNet servers and play online. I then played Warcraft 3 when it came out, and obviously the expansion for that, Frozen Throne, which then, just the easy transition into World of Warcraft in 2004, November 2004 was when the game came out, and I think Matt got it like the first or second week. I probably got it a couple days later, and then Kiser, I think you got it basically around the same time as well. And I've had a running account ever since. And so yeah, it's been almost 12 years, just like Haddix. And as far as the movie is concerned, I will tease and just say it is the shittiest movie that I enjoyed thoroughly.
And that's saying a lot, because I'm sure there are plenty of shitty movies that you enjoyed.
Hey, don't make fun of the fact that I enjoyed Dirty Dancing. Like, legitimately enjoyed Dirty Dancing.
Again, let's not talk about your wife right now, okay? That said, so you kind of said basically the same thing, Kyle, as me. I did play Warcraft 2 back in the day prior to the BattleNet edition. I think I bought Warcraft 2 when they used to have deals where it was like $10 or something like that. Loaded it up. Then, of course, BattleNet edition I played the shit out of with you guys. Bought Warcraft 3, the collector's edition, when it finally came out. Played it, found it vastly different from Warcraft 2, even though it was still an RTS. Didn't play Frozen Throne till years down the line. Then, of course, played World of Warcraft for a multitude of years and expansions on and off, and then have since not touched Warcraft and or its lore in probably a solid 3 years. That all said, I thought the movie, based on the trailer, was going to be hot trash, and I was pleasantly surprised by it overall. I thought it got a worse rap than it deserved. That said, I don't think it's a perfect movie either. But let's just roll right into it. Let's just talk about what we enjoyed about the movie. Hougie, watching it overall, what stood out most to you that you enjoyed more than anything else?
I went in there scared that I was going in there with my wife, who does play World of Warcraft, but does not pay attention to the lore all that much. Every once in a while, I try to tell her things, but I don't think she really cares.
I'm sure it's not a big turn on as you start to tell her about Arthas's upbringing.
Yeah, sure, for sure. But I mean, if she knows who people are, but I mean, as far as like any kind of deep storyline, she doesn't really care. Then we also went with two other friends, one of which played WoW, one of the other one did not at all. And the one thing I was kind of scared of was how much are they going to be lost in the translation of this movie? Because I think the one thing I was scared about, especially with...
Did you guys not go to the English showing of it?
Oh, this guy over here. You know what? There's never going to be a time where I'm not going to be able to just go from point A to point Z and just give my opinion. There's always got to be...
That's the problem. If you go to point A for point B, I have no way to interrupt. If you go from A to Z, dude, I've got all kinds of letters to get in between with you.
That said, I was scared that people who may not already have a rich understanding of the lore might get lost with some of the things that are going on. And I will say that did happen from time to time, which will be one of my gripes. We'll discuss that more in detail. But I was actually very surprised that I feel like you could have gone through that whole movie and understood that this is the beginning of hopefully, maybe a trilogy or whatever, a series of movies that will give us, more understanding and maybe more appreciation of the characters as we go. So the one, I think what I saw out of that was it was a satisfactory movie, especially if this is just going to be like the kickoff to more movies, which I would assume with especially the success overseas, I would think that it makes sense to make a second movie.
I will sort of table what you just said for a discussion later on. I don't disagree with anything you said, but I feel like it's a discussion that I want to have later in the podcast, so I'm going to hold it off at that point. Before I ask Haddix what you enjoyed about it, I wanted to just say real quickly, as we were talking about translations, one thing I enjoyed that this movie did is obviously the orcs speak a different language than the humans, and in certain movies they have that, who speaks what, and there's usually subtitles or something like that. I like the way that this movie handled languages. If, they spoke in perfect English for the audience to hear when you needed to hear it, and then there would be certain moments of translating, but they didn't subtitle it. It was just like, oh, what did he say? And that was it. And if the orcs were talking, and they're talking an orcish language, you as the viewer were able to just understand them perfectly, but maybe the outsider couldn't understand them. And I really like the way they handled that. I don't know if you guys
they lowered the volume.
Not.
They would like lower the volume of the orcish language, and then they turn up Garona, who's translating. So you hear Garona more easily.
Not even just that part, but I think just in general, if two orcs are sitting there and there's nobody around other than orcs, they're just speaking perfect English as far as you're concerned. And I like the way they handle that.
I was just saying, I also like the way they handled it when both sides met, which really I think only happened twice overall, where obviously the orcs from Draenor have no idea how to speak Common, and there's no way in hell that the humans know how to speak Orcish. So they actually did a good job with the scenes where they meet at that like ravine where they're all just kind of like they're discussing strategy about how to take out Gul'dan, and Duratan's talking to the king. And Garona is translating, but so you hear the Orcish, but it's very, very low volume, so you still at least understand that they're speaking it, and Garona is translating. So I thought they did a very good job with that as well.
Yeah, that's fair. Haddix, what stood out to you that you enjoyed about this movie?
We talked about this after we saw it, and I think for as CGI heavy as the movie was, the orcs looked amazing. They you go into it with a little bit of hesitation when you know most of the main characters are going to be CGI'd, and I thought they looked cool when they talked. It seemed real. It didn't look real fake or anything like that. They were able to kind of portray some emotions when they talked. It wasn't just kind of, just one way or anything like that, or one emotion. So I did really, really enjoy that.
Yeah, I mean, from the opening scene, I think and you guys correct me if I'm wrong, but what I remember that opening scene is it's like almost a close-up of Durotan's like eye, and you can just see the detail in, he's kind of, there's almost like a tear in his eye, and just the detail of, the wrinkles in the face and the hair and this and that and the orcs. It was very well done. Something Blizzard's always done. We said this for years watching these opening intros for the games that, damn, those things are so well done. Like, if they ever made a movie, like, it could be phenomenal if it was just completely CGI'd. And this movie, going into a part CGI, part live action, there was some concern there, and I thought at least on the CGI end, it looked phenomenal.
Yes, agreed.
I actually thought, don't get me wrong, the orcs looked really, really, really good as far as the CGI. I actually thought, I feel like I'm the only person that even mentioned it. No one really paid attention to it. But anyone really paid attention to the way the griffins looked in that movie? Because I thought that the detail on the griffins themselves was
superb. I think
everything. Yeah, I was just say CGI in general. I think everything they did, backdrops, the castles, the architecture, the animal life, the orcs was all very good. And one gripe I can get to is I thought the actual live action itself was lacking, and I'll save that for a little bit. But I agree, Kyle. I thought the griffins looked very realistic. And actually, while we're talking about it, that griffin kicked some major ass. Like,
yeah, it did.
You kind of wish you had one of those in World of Warcraft.
I mean, you can fly one, but
it doesn't fight like that.
It doesn't exactly take out a bunch of orcs.
Yeah.
What'd you guys think of the story overall? Just, we'll save the comparing it to the actual lore, but just in general as a movie, well, how'd you think of the story?
I tried as much as I can not to try during the movie to try and compare the actual lore to
I think that's the best
Duncan
way
Jones.
to go about it.
If I went in there just trying to nitpick, then I wasn't going to actually have time to enjoy the movie. So I never got a chance to see the movie a second time, which I felt like that would have been my time to really maybe study the movie itself and kind of just see things I missed, maybe a couple of Easter eggs that I may have missed and that I should have taken a look at. But no, the story I think was good enough. I don't. Once again, I still base this on the whole idea that there's a lot of holes, but I think that's on purpose to hopefully, I think they went in here with the plan that there were going to be more movies.
You can absolutely see that they're setting up for future films.
Yeah, and I think it is very hard to take such an expansive universe like Warcraft and the Warcraft's basically 2 and 3 and then World of Warcraft, and turn that into a 2.5 or what was it, 2 hour movie and get everything in there. It's just too hard. It's and
it was rushed as is.
It was, but I feel like that's just part of making a movie. Like, you can't make a movie with all the scenes that you really want to put in there to explain everything in a 2-hour movie, because you introduce one character, and then if you do that, you got to give the whole backstory. I mean, it just would be an expansive. I mean, you do lose some of that. So, I mean, is it perfect? No, but I thought it did a pretty good job setting up this whole beginning to this Warcraft thing in one 2-hour movie.
All right, but to kind of counteract what you're saying there, there's no I mean, yes, the Warcraft universe is very vast. They've had, if you count all the expansions, God knows what, 10, 12 different releases of some form or another of a Warcraft game. So they don't need, that first movie doesn't, if they're saying, hey, we're only going to make a trilogy of Warcraft movies, they don't have to, that trilogy doesn't have to go from the beginning of Warcraft 1 to current lore of World of Warcraft. Like, there's no reason for that. It's the movies. It should be almost in some ways a whole separate entity. Whether they keep the lore and want to do some stories, that's fine, but it's not like they have to say, okay, this first movie is going to have to cover Warcraft 1, 2, and maybe part of 3 or something like that. There's no reason for that. The first movie
that would make a horrible movie too. Like,
right. You'd be rushing too much.
Like, Warcraft 3 itself could be a trilogy. You know, because there's so many different pieces and parts, especially if you include the Frozen Throne.
Absolutely.
Like, that's easily 6 hours of content.
Right. So, I don't think they had to cram so much into it. And that said, I don't think they did. I'm not saying they did, but I don't think that they were like, okay, we have all this material, we need to take the first 40% of it and put it into one movie. And they really didn't do that. But they still crammed a lot into the movie, and without having some background knowledge, I felt like there was moments where if you've never played anything, you'd be a little less informed. I don't even want to say confused, because I thought the story overall was pretty understandable from an outside perspective, but there might be certain things that you're like, okay, I guess that makes sense. But if you have more knowledge about it, you have a better understanding, I guess, of. But
could the same thing be said about like the Lord of the Rings trilogy? Because I've read the books. It's one of the very few book series I've actually read. But if you read it, like the movies,
that and Amelia to Bedelia.
Yeah, I miss it. God damn it! Now I'm being nostalgic. Getting back on topic, the Fellowship of the Ring. Some people might have said that seemed rushed compared to if you actually read the book. Like, there just wasn't enough time to put everything in the movie. Obviously,
when they make The Hobbit into 3 movies and the Fellowship of the Ring into 1, I guess if you could turn The Hobbit into the 3 fucking movies, then I guess the Lord of the Rings themselves could have been 9 or 10 movies on their own.
Exactly. That's what I mean. Like, you took one book and made 3 movies out of it, then you took 3 books and made 3 movies.
Honestly, I'm more on the side of making 3 movies out of 3 books, but that's a whole nother discussion for another day. What'd you guys think about the Easter eggs in the movie?
I thought they were awesome. Again, something you would never have picked up on if you didn't play the games. But
no, and that's why they're Easter eggs. They're fan service.
Yeah,
shout-outs.
That's exactly what it is. I think I'd venture to say a huge percentage of the people that actually went to this movie were at some point or another fans of either the Warcraft games or World of Warcraft, and that was for them. I think Blizzard knew that. I think Blizzard knew most of their money was going to come from actual fans of the lore and things like that, so they made a point to put those little things in there. I thought it was cool. Like the Murloc had nothing to do with anything.
No, it was a very side thing. It was like they were changing scenes and they just flashed to that.
Yeah, exactly. It didn't ruin the movie in any way. Didn't make anything confusing. If you didn't know about Murlocs, you probably maybe either didn't notice it or just figured it was just some creature, and then that was it. But it was just a cool little thing for fans.
The one of the embarrassing things while I was watching, remember I told you I went with my wife and two other friends, one of which played WoW. I completely forgot which one of them did. So I was sitting next to the one that did not at all, but I forgot. So there were certain parts where I saw the Easter eggs, like when Deadwind Passes all of a sudden becomes Deadwind Passes becomes like a desolate, all the trees just got wiped clean, and that's what Deadwind Pass looks like now. And I kind of lean over to my friend, and I'm like, oh, so that's why Deadwind Pass looks like that. And he kind of looked at me like, what? And then I kind of ignored it. And then there was another scene, I guess earlier, where the Griffin comes in, where the Flight Master is in Stormwind. That's exactly where it is in the game. And
I didn't even notice that one, to be honest.
Yeah, I looked back over at him again, and I'm like, oh man, look, the Griffin landed right in that same little spot. And he looked at me again, and all of a sudden, I look over, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. You're not the one that watches this or plays this game. So it was a little embarrassing, yeah, it was. And Jensen definitely agrees. I definitely love the Easter eggs. There's a bunch more, but I don't know if we're going to talk more about it. But it's just seeing the chieftains, even though they never mentioned them by name, but they showed them at the end as Gul'dan's pushing people out of the way. He's pushing like Hellscream out of the way. He's pushing Target Blade Fist out of the way, and people they don't have names yet, but they look exactly them. I mean, they look exactly like them.
I'm pretty sure I even saw Fan of Satan there in the group of them.
Dude, he's Forsaken, man. He wouldn't be on the Orcish Horde. I want to get it right.
An Easter egg you didn't mention that I really enjoyed was when Khadgar polymorphed the guard into a sheep.
Oh, God.
And he said, "Oh, it only works on the simple mind and lasts about 60 seconds."
Yeah, that was like the best.
I was waiting to be like, "Is there a cooldown on that?" And he's like, "No."
The simple mind part was the best. Like,
yeah, absolutely,
just that line.
absolutely was. Yeah. So that's there's obviously some fan service in there. We thought the CGI was great. What didn't you like about the movie? Haddix, I'll start with you.
I do think it had a similar problem that Batman vs Superman had. The pacing.
Zack Snyder didn't direct it, dude.
Well, dude, if Zack Snyder directed it, people would have hated it 10 times more just because he directed it. But the pacing was fast, and again, I think it's because they're trying to fit. I think the movie needed to end with that battle. So I think they go into this movie saying, all right, this has to end with this battle. We need to be able to describe or get this feeling around certain characters before we get there. Like people, you want people to love Varian. You want people to feel bad for Garona because of the situation she's in. You want people to, sympathize with Duratan, like he's doing this for his people. You want people to hate Gul'dan, like all this kind of shit has to be established before this war happens. So it did feel rushed to get to that point. I still enjoyed it, just like Batman vs Superman, but there definitely was kind of, a sense of...
They definitely jumped quickly from scene to scene. And I think, Kyle, you might want to elaborate on it, but it was hard for, especially the casual moviegoer, to really soak in what happened in particular scenes because they jumped from scene to scene.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are too many points in the movie where I think when the events are starting to unfold and things are starting to come a little bit more into focus, and then there's just no time to really think about it, and all of a sudden it's like, meanwhile in the orc camp, it's like, wait, whoa, what the fuck was Medivh just talking about? And so some of the things people didn't understand, as far as what Medivh's, there was the whole point about Medivh kind of betraying his people and things like that. I felt like that should have been played a little bit more, that was a little more important. I think the movie led it on to be. One of the big problems I had with the movie was the main human character. I asked all three of the other people that I went to the movie with, and I said, what was his name? None of them could tell me who Anduin Lothar was.
I agree completely. And actually, one thing that both the critics have said, and I actually agree with, is on the orc side, you could tell Duratan was like the orc hero. And, Garona was like a bigger name, sort of the female lead of it, but Duratan was like the orc hero that you knew about, you felt for, you've developed this, kind of a feeling for.
He's also the main poster guy in pretty much all the trailer.
Yeah.
He's the most shown person on the movie for sure.
When it comes to the human side, you've got Khadgar, you got Medivh, you've got Lothar, and you don't really feel for any of them, nor do you really kind of, to your point, you don't really develop any sort of relationship or feelings towards any of those characters.
I mean, how much feeling, how much emotion did you get when King Lane was killed? And he's a huge character in the story.
I got probably less feelings I would say maybe on par with when Lothar's son was killed, which I cared as little about as I did when he died.
I think they try to develop some feelings for Lothar, though, with him talking to Garona about his wife died or whatever, and his son's all he has, all that jazz. When his son died, he's trying to get his way through that whole force field. You know what I mean? Like, I think they try to develop some sympathy for him. You know
and maybe
what I mean?
this movie wasn't meant to do that. Like I said, if we're talking that this might be the first of 3 or 4, then maybe there's more of the Anduin Lothar story later. So the big story would have been Durotan, especially with the fact that he dies in this movie. And I definitely felt it when Durotan died because it felt more impactful that he was trying to stand up to basically
hands
the
down
evil of the movie.
Yeah,
so,
I mean,
that whole fight was huge.
He was the Christ character of this movie by far. Like he died for what he believed in.
Well, even Draka's death was more impactful. It felt like.
Yeah, I think I agree with that too. And one thing,
even though she died shitty, that was like that. Once again, we'll go when we talk about the lore, the actual lore. We'll go back to that.
To sort of bounce, piggyback on what you were saying about how okay, maybe this is the first of 4 movies, 3 movies, whatever. That's how it is. One big gripe I have, and it's with this movie, and it's just Hollywood in general. So the disrespect I'm throwing to this movie right now can be said for many other movies, is the fact that they create this movie with the idea that they're going to make at least a trilogy out of it. So they don't make a complete movie anymore. And that bothers me because you can't just go and watch a movie and just enjoy it and be done with it and like, okay, cool. You go with it and it's like, well, now I gotta wait for the second one to come. And it's not like it was a book series that, like the Hunger Games, where it was a trilogy written from the beginning and they're making it into movies. It's, like these movies come out in Hollywood and you're already expecting a sequel. You're watching it and it's like, if this movie fucking blows, I don't want to watch a second one. I don't want to watch a third one. And I hate that the fact that they have to pander to the idea that they gotta make multiple movies. And I think the same thing happened in this one. They're making it with the idea they're setting up for a sequel and, a third or a fourth, what have you. And it really takes away and it does a disservice to that particular movie and hurts the movie overall because they leave holes and it's an incomplete movie.
And unfortunately, that's just the way Hollywood is now. Like you said, it's almost like you want to make a kick-ass movie, but you can't. You almost can't because for one, the fan base is easily there, especially overseas, and there's plenty of material to make multiple movies. So it's just the era of just making a one and done movie it's just not there anymore. Even if you were to make one movie and then go 5-10 years later to make a sequel. There's always movies never end anymore on their own terms on the first one because people always think that maybe somebody will take on a sequel to a movie kind of like a Independence Day, even though Independence Day seemed like that was a pretty good ending. I don't know if anyone thought about making a sequel, but that ended on its own terms. It didn't need to make a sequel, but this movie definitely screams out that this is nowhere near over.
Right, and I wish that it could have been a complete movie on its own and then leave like a little, Thrall floating down the river. Okay, you leave that open if you want to make a sequel, but everything else ends in its own way. Not leave all these openings for it. Again, it's not just Warcraft. It happens with all kinds of movies, and it really... It's awesome to be able to see all these sequels and trilogies in movie theaters, don't get me wrong, but at some point it also hurts movies being able to do that. And I just wish that, especially movies that are untested, like Warcraft, that they just come out and they make a complete movie, and then you know what? If they're going to make a sequel, then they can make a sequel from it.
I feel like the only issue with that, with a movie like Warcraft, since it's based off of so much lore, is without changing too many things, I don't know how you end that movie kind of without leaving things open. You know what I'm saying? Like you almost couldn't end every storyline without completely changing the lore that already exists. And then, in the back of your mind thinking, all right, well, let's make this its own movie. If it does well, we'll do a second one. But you can't do that without.
It would be hard not to end it with a little bit of a premonition, just because we all know that the story is clearly not over. And the thing is, it's not like it's not even over in for a couple of months. Like that was like a small, as far as being a small victory, like it continues pretty immediately afterwards.
Yeah, exactly. That's my point. So it's like hard to do that. I understand what you're saying, and movies that aren't really based on anything, I feel like should try to end when they can. But with Warcraft having such a rich lore, I mean, they already changed some drastic things for the movie. To be able to end that movie with everything tied up, all the loose ends tied up, I mean, you really change a lot of things.
Right, and
so
I know exactly what you guys are saying, but let's be honest, when you take a video game and you put it on the big screen, your audience, if you get 40% of if 40% of your audience is the video gamers, that's probably pretty good. I don't think more than half your audience, if more than half your audience that goes and sees your movie is your audience that will see it no matter what because they're fans of the game.
They've already sucked in. That's the easy.
It's the easy money. You want at least over half that, especially when you're talking movies, to be new people. And in order to do that, you need to create a movie that can be watched by everyone, and they can walk out and say like, "Oh, that was a good movie." Not like, "Oh, well, I know that X and X and X still have to happen." Like, they can leave a couple open doors and loose strings, but like they should make a complete movie out of it. And I think this is an incomplete movie.
Do you think it would have been a better movie if they went completely CGI? Like kept more traditionally to Warcraft, where it's supposed to be fantasy, no real humans. It's even the humans are cartoony. So in the actual Warcraft. So do you think it would have been more successful if it was like a Pixar? You know what I mean? Not Pixar, but like something like that where everything is computered.
So it's an interesting question because it sort of goes into my other big gripe with the movie, and I will preface this by saying the movie could have been great if it was completely CGI, but I don't think it makes as much money because a completely CGI'd movie in this aspect would be a disservice. It would not make the kind of movie that it becomes an animated film, not of the likes of a Pixar film that's going to be children of all ages kind of thing. So it's not going to make the money they're going to make. So it needs to be live action.
That's where I kind of disagree. I only disagree because when I look back at it, I think to me still the most successful movies, or the most successful movie in my opinion of as far as critically acclaimed, I guess, even for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I don't remember the name of the movie, but it came out in like 2007 or 2008.
It was TMNT.
TMNT. Like that was completely animated, and that's still to me better than either of the live actions. Not the old ones, the new ones.
I haven't seen the second one, but I agree with Haddix. I bet you right now, without knowing any background story, I can almost guarantee the Michael Bay TMNT has made more money than the TMNT movie did.
I think. Not because it's better. I feel like like the majority of people that aren't fans of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. We're all fans because of the cartoon. We're a little nostalgia. Warcraft, we're fans of the game, so we go to see the movie. I think people who are your casual watchers don't take animated movies as seriously, so they're not.
An example of that is Dragon Ball. Like, there's been 10 animated movies, all which have had very big success, both in the U.S. and Japan. But they can make an actual movie
in the movie theaters.
No, two of them have. I mean, two of them have had, I guess, limited theater exposure, but especially the last two, which came out 2 years ago. But Dragon Ball Evolution has been one of the biggest bombs ever, and some of the biggest things has been that it just doesn't make sense for an anime to go live action, which is sometimes can be the argument for having a 20-plus-year-old Warcraft storyline that has never had a real face or a real human face to any of these characters, and then all of a sudden put one on them. For some, that may come off, especially the fans, that just may come off as maybe a little either cheesy or a little awkward.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, though, if you want to make blockbuster type money, which is what Blizzard was doing when they released this in movie theaters, you've got to make it live action. If it's completely CGI, it's at best going to be a limited release or a direct to DVD, Blu-ray kind of ordeal. So they had to do live action. Whether I think it would have been better if it was completely CGI'd, but I don't think they would have made the money that they did if it was that route. But why? One of the other reasons that I would like it to have been all CGI is because to me, while I thought the CGI on the orcs was phenomenal, you know, to your point, the griffins, the nature, the castles, the structures, the backgrounds were all great looking on the CGI. The humans to me looked pseudo fake. And then the costumes almost to me felt like something you would see if like ABC or like PBS or something was like creating a live action version of this movie and just threw together some costumes that they had at the local like rec center. And I thought they looked so fake in comparison to the actually fake orcs on screen.
Wasn't I thought some of the armor itself was even CGI'd. I didn't think everything that they were wearing was actual armor that was created for them.
It may have been, but like even like to me, like the robes and stuff they made just seemed so shoddy to me.
I don't know. I agree. I do agree that the CGI was done well in some places, and there were some where it was almost like it had to be used because of the lack of artistic creativity for actual props. Is that what you're kind of saying?
Yeah, I mean, it was almost like they blew the budget on all the CGI, and then like they're like, "Oh shit, we also have some humans here." Like, "Oh, grab that robe that you just took a bath in, and you're Medivh now."
Well, I get that. I mean, to their defense, that's kind of what Medivh looks like. I mean, he usually just walks around in shabby, brown robe outfit. Khadgar's a little bit different.
He needs to raid more, dude. He needs to get that better gear.
Unfortunately, he was dead before he ever had the chance.
So, you guys are sort of the lore masters here. I'm not
Says the lore master.
Well, I mean, I was the original lore master. I was the hipster when it came to lore masters. But you guys have known more about the lore and you've kept up more with it and, probably read up more on it. So I want to ask you guys, sort of compare and contrast the big points of the movie. I'm not going to say like, oh, this town wasn't as close to this town or something stupid like that. Like, to me, what are the big discrepancies or what did they do right in the movie?
I think Hougie would agree with me that the whole Garona story was probably the biggest difference between the movies and the.
And they didn't have time. That's more of a. If you start really digging more into like Garona's true lore, I mean that could just be a movie called Garona.
That's what that kind of goes back to my original point about if you start to get too much in depth, it takes too long. Like in the lore. Garona's mom's a Draenei, and she gets raped by the Shadow Council of orcs, which Gul'dan's the leader of, which they don't even mention the Shadow Council in the movies. So whether they exist or not, I don't know. But she gets raped by them and then gets like aged by magic to be older. So, I mean, if you actually said that in the movies, you'd have to explain what the Shadow Council is, explain the magic they use to, rapidly age her to being older. And the lore, she's like,
it's like that Robin control. Williams Jack magic, right?
Exactly, dude. That reverse Benjamin Button.
Yeah, because the first thing I thought about at the very beginning, because she holds that, because Gul'dan gives her like that tusk and said this was the memento of your mother, assuming that the mother is Orcish. But the whole storyline that I've always understood and what's been the lore forever is that her mother is the Draenei half. But I think the reason why they didn't go with that right now it's assumed she's half orc, half human, which also makes no damn sense.
I don't think that's assumed. I think you just know she's half orc.
So it's interesting you guys say that because was it just me, or did you get the feeling that Medivh was her father in that movie?
See, here's the thing. The reason why I never even thought about it is because it makes no sense whatsoever lore wise. Even if they would try to take some liberties,
that's fair.
Only because in the real lore, Medivh and Grona have a child together, which in this movie I don't think makes any sense. Obviously, because
obviously she's not even the love interest.
Exactly.
Those two aren't even love interests.
In the actual storyline, though, Medivh is her lover, and it made more sense that she's half orc, half human because she looks like a human, and she speaks common, so she had to know how to speak it somehow. So she had to have at least been on the other side of the portal once to be able to mingle with the humans.
She said she learned how to read She said she learned how to speak English from the slaves that they captured.
She did say that, but I mean, if I'm a casual, I know a decent amount of the lore, and I felt it was heavily implied in that movie that Medivh was her father. And I feel like to a casual viewer that knew nothing else, who assumes she's half orc, half human because she kind of looks like she's a human orc. Am I off base in thinking that they really pushed to that when they were talking about how Medivh traveled far distances for his love?
Yeah. I can see that.
And then he gives her that teleport basically, but hands her that rose and said, "This is the gift I can offer to you." As he just basically told her he went on the long distance for love, that kind of thing. I felt that there was an implication there that he was her father. And I know, to your point, Kyle, that shit's all over the lore, but I mean, if I'm a casual viewer, how do you not interpret it that way?
I guess, yeah, and once again, the reason why I did interpret it, because I know so much about the lore that if that ends up being what it is, I mean, there's a difference between taking liberties, and there's another thing about just saying, screw very well documented, facts about Warcraft and just throw them out the wayside. Because obviously this is a Blizzard movie too, so this is not like Blizzard just let Duncan Jones do a movie about Warcraft. They supervise this, so they know what he's putting in the movie. I can only assume that the truth will be ultimately revealed in a second or third movie, but I would be surprised, and I would even go as far as saying disappointed if it ends up being that Medivh is the father of Garona.
You are the father.
Hougie says the worst Maury Povich show ever.
Hougie says, "Give me liberties or give me death." Right?
Absolutely.
Go
ahead.
I was just gonna say the other big moment with Garona that's sort of a moment of discrepancy with the lore or not is how she kills Lane. I don't know if you guys have feelings one way or another of how it was portrayed in the movie as opposed to how it is portrayed in the lore.
I think it was a necessity based off of the fact that she's not mind controlled by Gul'dan. So
yeah, he's not even a priest, so I don't know how he has that ability.
Exactly. It's another Easter egg.
I didn't care about that. That was fine because it made that liberty. I'll use that word again. Is fine because it made sense that you knew that, okay, we know King Lane dies, and we know that Garona kills him. That is more important to me than who Garona's father or mother.
And neither way, she kills him under her own pretense. It's not her doing it.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, either way, in the actual lore, she's kind of manipulated by Gul'dan because she's still kind of under the control of the Fel energies when she does it, but she's reluctant. She didn't want to do it then either. In this case, she reluctantly did it because Lane told her to, because I think he knew he was going to die that day anyways. If he was going to find a way for Garona to be spared, it was to have Garona kill the king or the chief of the humans, as the orcs would say, and then the orcs would accept her back, and then she would be able to be in their ranks and be a spy again.
Yeah, I wish Lane had said, "It is a good day to die."
That's a cheat code, isn't it?
That is a cheat code for Warcraft 2, right there, ladies and gentlemen.
You better you better keep that because not to spoil anything, but that topic could show up later on tonight.
Oh, well, there you go. So as we're kind of winding things down here, each of you guys, opinions, does this get a sequel? Does it not? It was blasted by critics. Users seem to like it. It made a shit ton of money in China and overseas. I think about almost 370 million overseas and less than 50 million here in the States. So, opinion, does it get a sequel, as well as one moment that we have not discussed, either a favorite, something you hated? Hougie, I will start with you.
You're too kind. It deserves a sequel because it's built to be one. It's not like they would have to write it up and create it. It's there. I'm sure they've already had table reads on what they think the second movie would be about. So I think that'd be easy enough. I totally understand why the critics shit all over this movie. I will ignore all of it because I don't think it deserved a 3 out of 4 stars by any means. I think a 30% rotten or 29% rotten or whatever it was is a disservice. I feel like they must have seen a different movie, or they were just already going in jaded thinking it wasn't going to be good and they just weren't going to give it a chance. And obviously the audience itself seem to enjoy it. It obviously helps that a lot of that is fans of Warcraft itself. So you're going in there with probably some bias on the positive side as well. But I will say that of me being, kind of like a lore guy and going with a bunch of people who didn't know much about the lore, all 4 of us enjoyed the movie, and we all had varying levels of experience with. But yes, I think it definitely deserves a sequel, and I think it'll be a lot better than this first movie. As far as anything else about the movie that of note, I did enjoy. I kind of thought it was cool how they created how the portal just came out of nowhere in Azeroth. Because obviously we're used to having the dark portal and it's already constructed. It's just sitting there. But like the way they did in the movie where it actually comes out of like a pool, out of like a pond, and they kind of like swim out of it. Because obviously there's nothing actually constructed. So Medivh had to do something on his end. But once again, difference in lore. In the lore, it is built. It's something that was created. It was only big enough for a couple people to go in.
You could say it was Warcrafted.
It was. You could say that. But I did like that creativity about okay, how did they all get back in there if no one's going to actually build the portal? And so I thought that was a cool way to do it.
Haddix?
I agree with Hougie. I think it definitely gets a sequel. Just probably based on how well it did in China, it would have gotten a sequel. That and Blizzard has a shit ton of money anyway, so who cares? But I do think the second one will be better as well. I think they'll learn from maybe some of the mistakes they made, some of the criticisms they got. They'll also have some of the background set already, so they can kind of just concentrate on the current story. As far as what I enjoyed, I really enjoyed those Easter eggs. I enjoyed seeing Goldshire where they're in the bar. You know what I mean? Like stuff like that. The things that
seeing those things big on the big screen that you
exactly.
As a gamer.
Yeah, like Duratan and stuff. These are characters that you've seen in a video game and you've come to love, and then to actually see them on a big screen is just it's awesome. And that's partially the reason I hope they make a second one. I hope they make a third one. And I hope they continue past that. But that's what I really enjoyed.
And also one more thing too. I also am very excited for what they're going to do with Thrall. Thrall was such a minute, person in that, but I think a lot of people understand that he's going to be a very important person. I mean, he basically is coming off like he's Moses going down the river. Yeah. So obviously there's something important about him, and I think just that little scene like that was more impactful than any of the humans dying.
Yeah, I agree. I'm with you guys. I think they're making a sequel. It's done the best of any video game of all time. That said, most video game movies make absolute shit when it comes to going on the big screen.
What was the best one before then? What was the best?
Doom.
Probably Prince of Persia. Oh, did Doom do better than Prince of Persia?
No, I'm just kidding. Doom sucks.
Which one? The one with the Rock?
Yeah.
I mean, how many Doom movies were there?
I thought there was. I thought they made like. I thought there was like a shitty one back in like late '90s that they did.
Maybe.
But I mean, I totally could be wrong. But I know they also came out with that movie around the time I think Doom 3 was coming out too. So like they were doing that as kind of like a package deal, or maybe like a year later, like the game came out or the movie came out.
I feel like Duke Nukem could have always been a better movie than Doom ever could.
Duke Nukem was one of like, the biggest
personality.
Like, that's one of the biggest dick teases though. Of like, hey, we're coming out with a Duke Nukem game, and then like 15 years later, there's still not a Duke Nukem.
It came out, dude.
It came out. Yeah, there's a Duke Nukem 3.
Did they come out? That's
Duke
the thing.
Nukem Forever. Yeah, it came out. People hated it. I personally loved it, but that's just. I think I was just excited for a game.
That's for another podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. So I do think it's going to be made into a sequel. If the sequel comes out and turns out to be about the same on par as far as this one was, I think that's it for them. I think they set the table. They can improve on what they screwed up here, and hopefully make an entertaining movie. And hopefully the humans don't look like they bought their attire at the local Goodwill.
And wasn't the Fellowship of the Ring the worst grossing of the 3 Lord of the Rings movies? It just slowly got better and better?
Probably, but that was also just sort of the era of the beginning of trilogies. I feel like that where movie theaters really started picking up. I mean, like that and Star Wars.
Well, once again, you want to make a movie that you think has the ability to pick up steam. And I think this Warcraft movie does have the pieces needed to do that.
Right. As far as me, one moment that we have not talked about that I loved is there at the end when Medivh, who's like now sort of good again, has created that portal back to Stormwind, and all the humans are running through it, but eventually he dies, and the portal's like slowly like seeping away, and there's orcs like right on the other side of the portal, like ready to kill anybody who like, doesn't make it through the portal. And everyone's like, oh no, the portal's dying. And there's some people standing there like watching it fade away. And the one dude just like off in the corner like dives into the portal like right before it closes. And obviously he survives, and then like everybody else just gets killed. He's like my MVP. That dude like lived to see another day.
Dude, you gotta tip your hat to like the director or producer or whoever that was like, let's just throw that in there, because that's what would happen in real life, but normally that doesn't happen in the movie.
Absolutely. Yeah, I would have been that little bitch. I'm surprised there weren't
more people that dove through the portal.
Right, no, everyone else like kind of stood around like watching it, and the one dude's like, fuck this, I'm out of here.
Yeah.
Well, I wonder if a portal works that way, where if you start trying to make your way through and it starts like disappearing, does it like cut you in half? So maybe they were kind of scared to death of being like basically ripped to shreds by a portal.
I mean, it was either ripped to shreds by a portal or ripped to shreds by the orcs.
Yeah, the rest of them died.
So, that guy made some sort of decision. I like to believe that he is now sipping tea at the Goldshire Tavern.
We could only imagine and only hope.
So that's it for the podcast this week. Don't forget, subscribe to us on iTunes. Leave us that feedback. Something I'm sure Haddix has not done yet.
Get them all over.
Follow us on Twitter, all that. Let us know what you thought about the movie. Next week, we move into our month topic, and we're still debating on what our month-long topic is. We'll have that out on social media, so follow us to find that out before next week. From the home of Blizzard Entertainment to the home of the Great Blizzard of 1978, I am Josh Kiser, he is Josh Haddix, and he is Kyle Hoagland, and we will see you guys next time.
Have a good Friday.
Remember the sun well.